Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the books that I read in the year 2018. So I'm going to get straight back into it. The next book I read, the Stormlight Archive books. So The Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, Edge Dancer and Oathbringer, all by Brandon Sanderson. And I loved them. I absolutely loved them. They're so good. Please read them. Please don't be put off by the size of them. They are incredible and they are on my favourite books of the year list, so I'm sure I will have gushed much more about them in that video, but essentially this is set in a world called Roshar that is plagued by these high storms, so the populace of the world have had to develop to survive these high storms. And the first book follows Kaladin, who I don't want to tell you too much about, but he goes through some pretty difficult times and he has to overcome some adversity. There's Shallan is another one of the main characters, and again I don't want to tell you too much because this really is a series about character development and anything that I tell you is potentially going to ruin things for you, but Shallan's story really is one of growth and learning. And then there's Dalinar, who is another of our main characters, and I feel like his story focuses on self-discovery. So that's all I'm going to say. Then I read The 11th Metal, which is a short story in the Mistborn universe by Brandon Sanderson, and then Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which is a book set in a world where there was this magical city called Elantris, filled with godlike beings who were gifted by the Sheod with magic. And once they were gifted by the Sheod, they moved to Elantris, and they were these people who were massively looked up to. But one day the city of Elantris falls, and everybody blessed by the Sheod is now cursed by the Sheod because they become these zombie-like creatures, and the city of Elantris is abandoned and deserted and feared. And we follow two characters in this story. I'm not going to tell you too much about them, but there is lots of mystery, there is lots of political manoeuvring. It's a really good book. I really enjoyed it. Then I read the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. That's a dark shade of magic, a gathering of shadows, and a conjuring of light. Again, I've spoken about this series quite a bit on this channel, and unfortunately it also features in my most disappointing reads of the year, so head on over there to hear my full thoughts about that one. But essentially this series follows, well, it's urban fantasy again, sort of, because it's set in a world where there are 4 parallel Londons. We have Black London, which has been consumed by magic and is no longer accessible by anyone. There is White London, which is slowly being consumed by magic. There's Red London that is flourishing with magic, and Grey London, who have lost their magic. And we follow a main character named Kel, who is a specific type of blood magician called an Antari and is able to travel between the parallel Londons. Our other main character is Delilah Bard, who is from Grey London, and we follow their adventures. Then I read White Sand, volumes 1 and 2, also by Brandon Sanderson. These are graphic novels. We follow a sand magician after a battle as he tries to understand what is happening in his world and why things are going the way they are. Again, I don't want to tell you too much because there's not a huge amount of plot in the books because they're graphic novels. And there's only 2 volumes out so far, so things are really only just getting started. The next was To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. Now, this is a Little Mermaid retelling, so we follow our main protagonist, Lyra, who is a siren, and she hunts down princes to steal their hearts for her collection, and her mother is Ursula, who is the main central point that is the same between this book and the original Little Mermaid story. Our other protagonist is Elion, who is the Midassen prince, and he happens to be a siren hunter. So we follow their two stories. The next book that I read in 2018 was Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw, which follows a protagonist named Dr. Greta Helsing, who is a doctor to the hidden world. Again, it's urban fantasy, and essentially she's a doctor to vampires, werewolves, ghouls, mummies, basically that kind of mystical world. She deals with all the medicine for there. And all of a sudden there are these monks who are attacking these mythical creatures and killing them. And Dr. Helsing and her friends take it upon themselves to try and figure out what is going on and why. Next up, I read Scythe and Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. I've done a full spoiler-free review and spoilery chat of these books, so I'm not going to go into them here for the sake of saving time, but needless to say, I loved them. They're fantastic. Just briefly, they're set in a utopian future where all forms of death have been eradicated, and now the only way that people can die is if they are gleaned by scythes, and we follow two apprentice scythes as they learn the ropes and become immersed in the scythedom and all of the politics and the intrigue and the drama and the angst that goes along with it. Fantastic books. Please read them. Next up, I read most of the currently out 3 Dark Crowns books. So I read 3 Dark Crowns, 1 Dark Throne, and the 2 novellas called The Oracle Queens and The Young Queens. And I'm going to talk about these again in my most disappointing reads of the year, unfortunately. The premise of these books is that it follows 3 sisters who are born and raised to the age of 6 together, and then they are separated and taken to their various magical clans to learn their craft, so that once they turn 16 years old they will be able to kill each other to decide who should be the next queen of Fenburn. And I mean, the short notes version is, it sounds really brutal, and it's not, which was disappointing to me because I don't feel like I got the story that I thought I was going to get. Next up, I read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which you can see right here. I'm not holding up all of the books for this because this is a lot of books, and frankly I don't think I have space around me to show you them all. But Skyward by Brandon Sanderson follows a girl named Spencer. This is young adult sci-fi, and Spencer dreams of being a pilot to help in the fight against the Krell, who are an alien race who are trying to kill the human race here on this alien planet. And Spencer desperately wants to be a pilot, but her chances of entering into pilot school and becoming a pilot are very slim, because her father in fact was a pilot in the Air Force, and he was shot down and killed and branded a coward when he turned tail and ran during a fight. In fact, the most epic fight there had ever been up to that point. And so Spencer is also branded a coward, and we follow her journey, and it's just really good. The next books that I read this year were the Full Metal Alchemist manga books volumes 1 to 3 by Hiromu Arakawa, and the follow 2 brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, who are state alchemists, and when they broke alchemical rules to try to bring their mother back from the dead, it went horribly wrong, and Edward lost a leg, and Alphonse lost his whole body, and Edward had to give up an arm so as to put Alphonse's soul in a suit of armour. And they are now searching for a way to restore themselves, and in the midst of all of that they're dealing with their jobs as state alchemists and investigating various issues and being general justice fighters, but in the most comical way possible. But bear in mind that it does get pretty dark sometimes as well, which I certainly wasn't expecting, but actually quite enjoy. Next up, I read The Northern Lights and The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. These are the first two books in the His Dark Materials series, and we follow... I'm just going to tell you about The Northern Lights because, again, spoilers, although at this point everybody probably knows what this series is about. Anyway, we follow Lyra Balakwa, who is an orphaned girl who lives in an Oxford college named Jordan, and she discovers that there's a lot more going on in the world than she realised in her sheltered life at Jordan College, and she goes on an adventure to discover what dust is and to save children who have been taken by the gobblers. I'm going to leave that there. And finally, or at least at the time I'm filming this, finally, I read City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, which is a middle grade book which follows a girl named Cass who can see ghosts, and she and her family go to Scotland, and she discovers that Scotland is an incredibly haunted place and she has to deal with that. It's a very short book, it's a very quick read, it's very good, so I'm not going to tell you more than that because anything I do tell you at this point would be spoilers, but that's it. Like I say, at the time of filming, those are all of the books that I've read in the year 2018, and I have split this video into two because of how long this video is likely to be, but I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said in part one, I have done separate videos discussing my favourite reads of 2018 and my most disappointing reads of 2018, so do check those out. And also I will be posting in the new year a December wrap up, so if you're interested to know the books that I read from City of Ghosts to the end of the year, then do check out that video. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this one and would like to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button. I'd be so grateful, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks. Bye.